how you approach leadership and how you determine which type of CEO am I today is changing for everyone. And this is probably the perfect case in point. If you were a CEO 10 years ago, you were probably providing standard certification and education and content. It was sort of like a known formula. That's so different today. Everything that I just mentioned, the way people consume education and training, the way we do certification now, the way that we publish content is all so dramatically changed by AI, is changing at such a rapid rate that it is forcing us to showing up to the table as very different leaders and thinking very, very differently.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Tori Miller-Liu, President and CEO of the Association for Intelligent Information Management, or AIIM. Tori, welcome back to Associations Thrive.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back.
Hey, for the listeners who didn't hear your first podcast, and I will be sure to put a link in the show notes to that interview because it's a really, really good one. Tell us about AIIM.
Sure. So we were founded in 1944, and we serve the unstructured and semi-structured data community, which means that our members are focused on managing information. This is typically information that you'll find in highly regulated industries, but think of all the stuff that you might consider dark data. It's outside of a structured tabular database. It's things like emails and social posts, contracts, invoices. It's all that really rich but messy data that informs us about members and customers and how our companies should interact with the rest of the world. These days, that type of data is much more important because of artificial intelligence and automation, but it's something that's been a constant for, generations, obviously, since we've been around since the 40s. And we provide education, certification, and training to that community.
Tori, give us a sense of the job titles that your members have. Because I bet it spans a lot of job titles, just so that, the listeners can get a sense of what do they do?
Well, and hilariously, we've actually done some research and surveying on this. There's no normalization of job titles in our industry anymore. Historically, if you thought about information manager, you'd probably be talking about an archivist, a records manager, an information governance manager, an information manager. These days, you might find like an IT director, an IT manager, or a CIO at a smaller organization is equally responsible for unstructured, semi-structured data management in some way. So now we tend to talk more about the practitioner as opposed to the professional, because there's plenty of people in our membership who have not necessarily chosen information management as their profession, but they still have to do it. They've been tasked with a project. They're trying to get in compliance with some data privacy law, and they need help. They need better information governance and management. And so they turn to us.
And so your members aren't necessarily techies.
So the way I think about our members is they have the foundational principles in information management and information governance. That means that they're concerned with the collection, the maintenance, the security, and the disposition and deletion of information throughout its life cycle. Layer technology on top of that. So our members tend to look at that entire life cycle through a technology lens. So we're very focused on AI and automation, not just to provide data to those systems, but also to leverage those systems to improve the management of information. So I guess techies with a flair.
Interesting.
A flavor of techie.
Yeah. Well, Tori, ChatGPT was released in November 2022, which seems like a lifetime ago. Here we are, it's June 2025. AI has changed the world. And I know that even I'm really just kind of shocked at the speed with which it seems to have changed the world. So, what's been the impact on the profession of information management?
It was such funny timing because ChatGPT really went viral a month before I started at AIM.
Right.
It added to the chaos generally in my first 3 years. So, first of all, our industry has been using AI, mostly like machine learning and natural language processing, for 2 decades. So, we were already very familiar with AI. But I think when generative AI really exploded and became accessible and scalable, not just to the end users, but also to the software providers, it did really transform how we're able to manage information. So, at a very granular level, a lot of the software solution providers in our space immediately started figuring out ways to integrate generative AI technology into their existing software packages. So all of a sudden, you had a provider who was doing workflow process automation. So literally like end to end coding. We're going to take this customer invoice and it's going to go through an appropriate workflow to make sure it gets paid and filed and documented in the correct way, right? Simple workflow, very, very basic form of AI. Now you have generative AI on top of it that can accelerate the process and can also interpret that invoice in a new way, really creating a new customer experience and also new experience for the staff that were managing that invoice process first. So, what I'm trying to get to is it added a new layer onto technology that already existed, really advancing and accelerating it. At the same time, for our software providers, it sped and accelerated the speed at which they can code new features and products. I talked to software providers that said, I was able to code this new package and develop this new package in a week, and it would have taken us 3 months 5 years ago. So that really changed things. And then for our end users, it's changed things in two ways. One, it certainly has made jobs easier to a degree. A lot of our practitioners are going to be responsible for managing information governance programs. So, enforcing policies, developing policies, handling metadata and tagging, managing the data, right? Obviously, Gen AI has helped with that. It's helped target when someone's out of compliance with something, it's helped with tagging, it's made us smarter information management practitioners. The second side of that, though, and the second big impact is our information management practitioners are now becoming core team members of AI projects and AI implementation. So,
Right.
when you think about how do I succeed with an AI implementation, you absolutely have to have a professional who's focused on the data. It doesn't really matter what kind of data it is, but there needs to be someone there who's responsible for the accuracy, the completeness, the quality, the data privacy of whatever's being put into the AI. If you don't have someone focused on that, I would go out on a limb and say it's absolutely not responsible AI implementation. When you don't pay attention to the data that's going in, you are more likely to have AI systems that are biased and do harm against actual people. So it's really important to focus on the input. And then on the flip side, it's really important now to focus on the output. If you're using AI to make critical decisions, there may be a need on the flip side to make sure that those decisions were recorded, that you have a record of what AI system was used, what data was inputted into the AI system to make that decision, especially if you're making really critical decisions about insurance claims, for an example, or legal decisions. Those are things that need to be recorded from a compliance standpoint.
Right, right.
So we have members kind of stretched in many different directions right now. And we are a hybrid association. So the reason I'm mentioning those software providers and practitioners is we represent both. We're both a society and a trade association.
Well, so Tori, is this leading to an explosion of new positions and new potential members for you? Because the industry, I keep reading about it, is just growing and exploding, right? So this has to be kind of an expansion of the profession?
I think so. Yeah. And certainly reflected in our data. About 20% of the people who responded to the survey that I mentioned have what I consider those legacy titles, like records manager.
Hmm.
That leaves 80% having very, very different titles. So, yes, I think we are seeing a real shift in the profession and renewed interest in dark data and information and content. But at the same time, I think as an industry, we're also grappling with what is that practitioner going to look like and what's the profession going to look like 5 years from now
Ah.
with AI. Like many professions, we're starting to think about of the roles and responsibilities performed by your average practitioner, which of those are going to be augmented by AI and which of those might be made redundant by AI?
So what does the future look like?
I don't know. We're still doing research on that.
Yeah.
I feel like the most common thesis that I hear from most professions, regardless of if it's in technology or healthcare or what have you, is those tasks that you consider robotic are the ones that are going to be most easily replaced by AI. So we're trying to do some thinking and research into that and what that does mean. What does the job description of an information manager look like 5 years from now? Are they more focused on perhaps managing AI agents as opposed to a team of records managers? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Right. And is AI helping us to have cleaner, better data? Man, and there's hordes of people devoted to that, right? Is that changing too? I bet it is.
I'm going to say yes, because I do think AI has enabled us to scan and cleanse terabytes and terabytes of data.
Right.
So the scale at which we can do that is much, much better. I think there's also a really deep risk, though, that if you leave AI to do that on its own, you do risk the data, frankly, just becoming garbage. I mean, it's garbage managing garbage.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I do think you need human oversight and a human in the loop for any kind of data quality process, but I do think it enables a single information management professional to manage far, far more data than you could have previously.
Right. Well, Kevin Kelly in his book, The Inevitable, talks about how in the future, and maybe the future is here, Tori, every single one of us needs to have an AI agent
Yeah.
that we essentially partner with. I mean, Microsoft says, look, we didn't call it the pilot, it's the co-pilot, because they're not positing that AI will do everything, that it's humans assisted by their AI agent that will do these jobs.
Yeah. I think from an association standpoint, we just launched our first AI search assistant with Higher Logic. We were one of their early beta testers and one of the first clients to launch that product. We named it AIIM.
Somehow all these agents have names.
I know. It's hilarious how interested we are in personalizing and personifying these agents. So
Yeah.
I think at an association level, one of the things that I've been a little obsessed with the last few months is thinking about how these AI search assistants are changing the way our members are consuming the content that we develop. Because associations are content powerhouses, right? Like that's our biggest value propositions that we create content. So I'm trying to, and so is my marketing team, trying to cope with this new era where we're less likely now to get someone from a traditional Google search than we were 3 years ago. So if people are getting to us from AI generated outputs, whether that's on Google's AI search or Copilot or something, like how does that transform the way that we're producing and publishing content?
Right.
How do you publish content for AI search assistants? And so it's funny because you're dealing with like these two parallels. On one hand, I'm thinking about how I make it easier for my members to access our content with AI and basically trying to eradicate our search on our website. And then on the flip side, I'm trying to deal with, okay, if search doesn't exist, how do I grow our audience? How do we get new people in the door?
I think that's a challenge, right? And there's a stat that my director of marketing just shared with me, and she said, Joanna, I was reading an article. Apparently, clicks from a Google search are down 60%, Tori.
Yeah, 100%. I believe that.
And apparently, the clicks to the number one organic search result, that's down 35%.
Yeah.
So you've got the AI generated result with the results down below. And if you get the answer and it looks plausible, you kind of take it and run.
You don't go farther.
Right. This is existential, I think, for organizations, because like you said, associations are content powerhouses. So are we now writing for the AI agents? so that they can scrape the content, consume it, and provide the right answer. But then where's the member value?
Yes.
If you gate it too much, then the AI agents don't know that you have it, can't reference it. So you risk the AI agents having the wrong information or the AI agents sending people elsewhere.
Yes. And that was a big topic of conversation at the recent ASAE Fellows Retreat. So I'm an ASAE Fellow, and Rob Wenger, who's the CEO of Higher Logic, who you and I both know, he and I did this session about like kind of AI predictions, like what's going to happen. And, a month or so ago, he and I agreed that Google, traditional Google search, is going to be dead by 2028. At this point, I think that's actually going to happen sooner.
I think so too. I mean, 2026.
Yeah. But what you just said is what several association CEOs in the room said. They were wondering, okay, we're now talking about how do we rethink how we publish our content? Does more of our content need to be in front of a member paywall? What do we start gating and what don't we? Because if we gate everything, we are basically no longer positioning ourselves as an expert
Right, as the authority.
in this new AI search assistant era. And so how do you release it? Do you release a portion of, say, your new research paper or a portion of your journal, and then use that as a conversion point or a call to action to get them to download or purchase the entire journal? I don't know if I have the answers, but I think that's something we should definitely delegate to our marketing teams.
Yeah, yeah.
Let them figure that mess out.
No, God, no. I think this is existential, Tori.
Yeah.
I think boards and senior leaders need to discuss this together because this speaks to member value. This speaks to what the member journey should be. This speaks to the conversion.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have the answers right now, but I think it's worth talking about. So the organization that is thinking about this early is going to be ahead of this because this is moving fast. It's moving faster than we thought it would.
Very much so.
Yeah.
You and I talked before about how you approach leadership and how you determine which type of CEO am I today is changing for everyone. And this is probably the perfect case in point. If you were a CEO 10 years ago, you were probably providing standard certification and education and content. It's sort of like a known formula.
Right.
That's so different today. Everything that I just mentioned, like the way people consume education and training, the way we do certification now, the way that we publish content is all so dramatically changed by AI, is changing at such a rapid rate that it is forcing us to come showing up to the table as very different leaders and thinking very, very differently.
Well, let's dive into this because I think this is worthy of a deep dive here. So let me step back. When I had you on the show in February 2023, you had just started, right? I think you'd started a month before, 2 months before. So what were the first 2.5 years like?
Very interesting and challenging.
Yeah. Why challenging?
Well, challenging because AIM was in need of a transformation of sorts. We had suffered financially for several years. We had lost members, lost some of our key volunteers. And so there was a lot of unhappiness in the community.
Hmm.
So a big part of my first 2 years was going on a big listening tour and rebuilding those relationships. We kind of had to take a step back and say, yes, we can recognize that there's financial and cash flow issues here, but you can't grow and you can't transform financially if you're off mission, if you've lost your sense of value and your sense of community. So a lot of year one was just simply rebuilding that. And in cases where we didn't need to rebuild it, figure out where do we have really strong relationships and really strong like, glimmers of the community, and how do we foster those little glimmers? So it's sort of like rebuilding spiritually, not to get like too kumbaya about it, but rebuild spiritually so that we could rebuild financially in year two. So rebuilding financially, as you can imagine, involves a lot of hard decisions. We had a reduction in workforce. We had to redesign and change a lot of programs. We had to cut programs. The board, I've been very fortunate, has been a fantastic partner in that, in communicating to members and helping with the change management, and in just simply being supportive of really significant changes that we had to make. So now we're in year three, and it's kind of a year where you've rebuilt spiritually, you've rebuilt financially, and it's the execution year. And we've been really fortunate that a lot of the things that we laid the foundation for in those first 2 years have produced really great results. We've fully redesigned our annual event, and it was held this past spring. It was financially successful. We got fabulous feedback from the amazing participants who joined us. 85% said that they were either very satisfied or extremely satisfied. 75% said they would return. So
Wow.
the work is really paying off now. Before, when I mentioned this idea of being reflective and self-aware enough to recognize when you need to show up differently as a leader. So the way I showed up last year, where it was challenging, right? Like, you're doing reduction in workforce, you're making very painful, challenging decisions for the organization. That was a different type of Tori.
It's a different leader that was needed at the time, right?
Different leader, yeah. Now it's more about growth and innovation and, okay, we've survived, so how do we thrive and reposition ourselves? And then you layer on top of that all the complexity that's happening at a geopolitical level, at an economic level, at a technology level.
And your profession is changing profoundly.
Yeah, so it's, on one hand, it's like chaos, and you feel like every day is new, fresh hellfire raining down. But on the other hand, it's like infinite opportunities and ways that we can succeed together as a community that I get really excited about.
Well, Tori, it's very different facing those challenges when the organization is challenged and losing membership.
Yeah.
When you're doing well, you've had a good conference, you've got money, and you've got these challenges. And really, are they challenges or are they opportunities? I think it's a very different environment that you're in. So how are you flipping the switch mentally with your energy level and with your leadership to kind of herald this new era at AIIM, it sounds like?
It's funny that you put it that way, because I've been thinking the last year or so that I think first-time CEOs, like I was in December 2022, need like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs for your organization. For those not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's the fundamental needs that your average person's going to need, right? So like the bottom are things like, I need shelter, I need food, water. So my first 2 years, I was at the very bottom of the pyramid, making sure, like, do we actually have funds to pay staff, to pay our solution providers? And then now I'm like moving up the pyramid. So I think it's kind of recognizing, all right, like, you fundamentally have the finances to support the mission. So now can we focus more on member engagement and member experience?
You can even talk about those things now because it's not just about survival.
Yeah. Yes. So I think, one, it's identifying where you are on that spectrum or that pyramid, however you want to visualize it, and recognizing that based on where you are, there are going to be different questions and conversations that occur. So I'm trying to, with the help of my executive coach and other CEOs and you as a friend, I'm trying to use this external input to help me figure out, well, where am I on that spectrum now? And how do I need to show up? And what are the questions that I need to ask today that I wasn't asking yesterday? And really starting from that standpoint. So like these days, I'm much more focused on, like I said, the member experience. How do we create personalized interactive experiences that, ironically, because most of our training's on AI and automation, I'm actually more interested in how do we create these experiences and moments that are the more human experiences, right? So even though we're talking about AI and automation, the way that we can educate and train people on that is by creating small cohort-based learning, which we did at our annual event, or using the AI search assistant to make it easier for our members to find our resources in our very deep repository of research papers and white papers, et cetera. So getting people answers more quickly, creating more personalization. We have a new membership engagement committee that's very focused on the member experience and the volunteer experience. So I think it's about not just thinking about those questions internally with yourself and your staff, but getting the board to think about that, getting volunteers to think about that, and getting more chefs in the kitchen to like grapple with these kind of big issues.
Tori, I'm thinking about a general who has to be a different kind of leader during war and during peacetime.
Yeah.
Does your staff know that you're in a new era, and does the membership?
I think the staff and I are both getting there. It's also worth acknowledging how hard it is to put on that different hat,
Right.
especially when you feel like you've just like walked through the fire together, right? So I, as a leader, am really trying right now to make sure that I'm very transparent with staff about our finances. I'm reassuring them about the state of the finances and what we're able to do now because finances are strong.
It is much more fun to operate when you're making money.
But I'm also honest with them because I really believe in being authentic. The goal isn't to scare people, but like I joke with my staff that I am pessimistically optimistic at this moment in time. Like I'm not quite ready to believe it, but I can't be happier or prouder of where staff and our volunteer leaders have helped us get to. Almost to the point it's making me emotional, like thinking about it. Like it was incredible. The annual event was incredible. Some of the products that we've launched, we have an AI certificate that we launched last year. I have a very talented education manager who has figured out how to fully leverage AI to generate online training for us. I have just a really fabulous team. There's so many stories. I have a smaller team now, but so many stories of how each of them have individually figured out how to embrace AI, to do their jobs better, and at the same time created like really new, better products. It's just great. I'm so proud of them.
Tori, is there room for celebration in all this to maybe mark a shift?
I really am a firm believer in rituals as part of management style. So for us, that shows up in staff meetings where we actually dedicate time to give each other kudos. We call it a recognition. Like it's a time that you can just brag about yourself, like something you did that maybe the rest of staff aren't aware of, but you want people to know this was a win, but also a chance to like thank other people. So we do that every week on our staff meeting. And we also have, the celebratory dinners at our annual event and things like that. We are a fully remote staff, so it's a little harder for us to do celebration as I would like to.
Right. That's adding complexity to the leadership journey.
It is, yeah. But I'd love to do something in person probably next year to just celebrate and like reflect on everything we've done the past 3 years. It's been such a ride, such a wild ride.
Well, you're coming off a huge success with your annual conference. You've got this new AI certificate. You've got this new global summit. How's membership?
Membership is fantastic. We ran a new campaign just this month and we have 94 new members.
Amazing.
So for an association of our size, that's huge. And we're so happy to welcome new practitioners into our community. We are launching new products left and right. We have a new book club for members led by one of our board members. We are launching new courses on data integrity. So we're really excited about how the community is growing, but also how we're providing value to that community. I don't want to grow if we can't deliver. So
Right.
I'm happy about all of that.
Well, it's June 2025. What are you looking forward to for the rest of 25?
I'm really looking forward to new regional events that we're doing this fall around the world. So I mentioned before how we're really focused on the member experience and personalization and interaction. And I think that comes with smaller, more intimate experiences that are more accessible to people.
And it'll keep you close to members as you grow.
Yeah. We want in-person, interactive education opportunities because I really firmly believe that that is the best way to talk about technology. And we talk about technology a lot. And hilariously, I really feel the best way to figure out these really complex problems. How do I prepare my data for AI? Or how do I use AI to make my information management program better? Those are super complex problems. They're better solved in person.
When people can have a conversation together.
Yep. It's all conversation based. And that's where associations have always played a role. We have always been the platform and the nurturer of community. So why not lean into it in the AI era, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, Tori, it sounds like you've got an amazing rest of 2025 ahead of you. We're going to have you back next year because it sounds like it's going to be another wild ride. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks, Joanna. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends.